When you come to church for the first time, if you find it boring or you don't understand what's going on, that's part of the disorienting experience of church, and that's what it's meant to be like. I'm Warren, the rector here at St. Columba's. Glad you could join me for my message of the day. Of course, church is meant to be strange. We've got a cross on top of a building, the building we call a church. As many have remarked before, having a cross on top of a church is the equivalent of having whatever the device for capital punishment is today hanging off the top of the church, like an electric chair or something, or a gallows or something. It's a really strange thing. Jesus was crucified on a cross. He was publicly executed, humiliated, shown to have lost. He was wrong, he was bad, he was a blasphemer, he was a sinner, all of those things. And he was crucified by the Romans with the agreement of virtually everybody. And yet we say he is the one, the person, the Messiah. And we have the means of torture and of his death hanging off the top of our buildings. And it's not hanging off the top of our building as a kind of criticism of people as sinners, all you terrible people who would have crucified Jesus if you'd had a chance, as though we wouldn't. It's not a kind of up there, it's not up there as a kind of accusation. It's actually up there as a sign of how God has saved us through the humiliating public execution of a man 2,000 years ago in a Roman province, which was a bit of a backwater. That's strange. So if you come to church and you find it disorienting, and you might verbalize that in terms, use words like, oh, I'm bored, or I don't really understand what's going on. It's meant to be like that. There's more to say about that, but that's the first thing to think about when you come to church. It's meant to be disorienting. And it gets even stranger, actually. We're not invited, when you come to church, we're not inviting you to join the ranks of those who think they wouldn't have ever crucified Jesus. No, you join the ranks of sinners, saved, not because they're good, saved by God, not because they're good, but because God is good. That's so important. It's not sort of joining the righteous. It's joining sinners who are saved by the God who is good. So again, it's no surprise that a church service would be found to be disorienting. And you might verbalize that in terms of, oh, I'm bored. All that means is it doesn't fit what you expect it to do in the way that you live your life now, in the way that you think how you're going to be happy, what makes you entertained, or whatever. Yeah, it's not going to do that. It's not meant to. If it was meant to do that, we wouldn't have a cross, the equivalent of an electric chair, hanging off the top of the building. Church begins under a different premise than the premise under which we live our lives normally. So we should expect disorientation experienced in some way, so that the church service, for instance, seems alien or foreign to us. And if I were to put it even more not succinctly, bluntly, the less foreign, the more church is what we are now. And the more we reduce the gap between who we are now and what church is, by making the gap less, or by making church into our own image, so we lessen the gap between us and church by making the church more like what we already think, the less likely it is that we are encountering the good news of Jesus. Now, of course, we need some traction when we attend church. We need something to be able to take hold of. Yes, of course. But we should always remember when we come to church that the task is for us to be moulded into what church is about. It's not about expecting church to fit into what we already think. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.